So the story goes like this. A great chieftain is sitting around his fire one day telling stories. And he gets to a point where, parabolic stories, he gets to a point where he's telling his son the story of the two wolves within us all. And he goes, You see, within us all are two wolves fighting for dominance. One wolf is that of good, of light, of love, kindness, honesty, integrity, and compassion. And the other one is of deceit and evil and ego and anger and jealousy. And so the son thought about it and he replied, Chieftain, which wolf within us wins? And Chieftain says, whichever one you feed. You become what you feed. And of course, the song I like to listen to is great at telling this story. He's like, sit on that for a moment, process it, let it think, and it just like starts going into a beat. I like to remind everyone of the multi-layered nature of these parables. There's many things within parables, and I feel like within religious doctrines and verses, many expectations, perceptions of these verses, these words, these truths being set in stone. This is what this verse means. That's what it means. That's it. When, if you've ever asked a Gnostic individual or a philosophical individual or, someone who doesn't, who thinks outside the box, and the teachings of the Gnostic scriptures where it's not even rumored to believe that the story of the Bible is passed down through the story of the Bible, the symbolic representation interpretation, the cyclical or cyclical reversing of the reincarnation story of the Jesus Christ or whatever story, all these symbolic very stories have been passed down for thousands and thousands of years. They did not get started 2,000 years ago. They have a much richer, deeper history that we don't really know about. And we've taken this wisdom that's been passed down through the ages that carries the absolute truth of the ages, not just of a certain time period, within it. It carries a multi-layered, multi-dimensional, fractal truth with it that relates to all ages. That's why we can continue to read it. And so with this two wolves parable, I would like, throughout my reflections and listening to it, I personally questioned, like I usually do, you know, why demonize the other wolf? They're both within us, right? Why mistreat one wolf differently than the other? And if you start going into Gnostic scriptures and the anthropological research of these scriptures passed down through through, the times, you recognize that there is a divinity aspect towards the that which is demonized or interpreted to be demonized within the Bible. Um, a big theme for me that I've learned from these scriptures is to not demonize, stereotype, label, or outcasts, rejects any aspect of them as being anything other than a divine reflection. And so, thus, it's said that we created the devil. We created the devil out of our own misinterpretation of the Bible. We inserted this antagonist aspect into these stories of light, sharing the natural cycles with us. And, if you ask certain individuals where or if the devil exists, they they just stare right at you. And these are the individuals that I align with the most is individuals who are like, devil exists within you, bro. It exists within your perceptions of your separateness or your segregation between this chain event reaction and that chain event reaction. It's denying the interconnectivity of us all, of the results of the collective happening all together at once in unison and synchronicity through, you know, truly we're all here with the same pursuit and the same dream. Our paths are always going to differ because it's absolutely impossible for us to all walk the same path. If we start doing so, we're going to wear grooves into this earth, and there's not going to be much of a civilization. There's just going to be linear anarchy, which I believe that's kind of what's going on now with like the perceptions of time being linear. We create such anarchy in our lives in the form of, contentment, comfortability, um, yeah, anarchy to a flux of energy flow would be silent and desolate stagnancy, right? Perspective. Um, so taking that with these two wolves, if you've ever had two, dogs, you don't treat one better than the other. Otherwise, they do start fighting. You don't favoritize one over the other. Otherwise, they do start issues. Like you got to give them both the love, the food that they need and deserve. Then everybody's happy. And when you start looking into these concepts of ego, we can't exist without an ego here. We cultivate this physical identity along with how we've identified physically, whether that means you identify as absolute nothing, just the hollow channel for the Christ energy to experience itself through. That's still an ego. It's that your ego is thy hollow self. You need that ego in order to interact with other individuals here. If you don't navigate that ego, if you don't accept or uh, nurture an understanding of your ego and how you fit into this picture display of life, then it's very difficult for you to experience or uh, yeah, get the experiences that you need to actually grow as an individual in your life instead of, if you don't do this, it can lead to very unhealthy cycles. And um, you wonder why people say all the time. When you don't know what to say or think or how to understand something. Um, uh, um. So like, I find that you can learn a lot from these parables by allowing them a life, a consciousness of their own, so that you don't just take them as a two-dimensional surface, set in stone words or phrase, but rather you see it as a conglomerate of wisdom and energy that can form to allow you to better understand yourself by using these reflections, by using these egos, by using this personification of the duality and the dichotomy of our existence in order to, you can't understand one thing without the other, and you'll never understand anything unless you step into something, like that's the point of being here. God created himself as us so we can experience this dichotomy. Without this dichotomy, which we call darkness, because it's the density of our reality that slows down energy frequencies, light frequencies, sound frequencies to the point of physicality. Thus, being able to have a computer, but in hands and, solid while resting in space. Um, and so, if you find yourself in experiences of fear, trepidation, it usually comes from an aspect of not accepting or embracing a part of oneself. If you are anxious of the outcome of a situation in your life, then it's possibly because intuitively you recognize that you're not allowing the entire picture to present itself to you. Maybe you're too close to a situation. You've been in the same household for months on end. It's, whatever the quarantine bullshit. Um, and it's just, I lost my train of thought after the bullshit. Yeah, there you go. Looking at not being able to zoom out from a situation. When you're so stuck and contained within a box that you can't walk out of or break out of or get a glimpse out the window, then you never understand anything other than that box. And so a lot of times, especially within our propaganda censorship, era that we live in, where people of power need to dominate others by restricting uh, understanding, principles, and teachings, education. so people can think for themselves. Um, we we often find ourselves being put in boxes and being fixated to one thing or another, whether or not it's our choice or not. It seems like a lot of the times, and I'd like for you to recognize that you have a choice in it. You don't need to stay in the house all the time. You don't need to put up with that asshole roommate. You don't need to put up with the relationship dynamics within your family that has made you out to be uh, a degenerate in a sense, lacking any this or that, whatever their expectations of you are, when they're fully shrouded within the distractions of their daily shallow lives. The perceptions, the definitions, the accusations of others don't define you. What defines you is your heart. And that's where a lot of these, you know, triggered concepts come from. Because if you're triggered by something, or if you react or respond emotionally strongly to something or another, a situation, a person, a concept, a belief, experience, then that immediately means through laws of physics and reaction, uh, through the laws of physics, as we understand them today, it's scientifically proven if you have a electrical reaction, a spark, a catalytic occurrence within oneself towards the happenings that you experience on the outside of you, then that means that there's an innate connection going on already, just like between two neural synapses. It's one neural synapse sparks and affects this neural synapse over here. There's a connection, there's an innate purpose, connection, and meaning between the cataclysm or the, the catalyzed reaction. And there's a lot of people nowadays who will be like, "Oh no, that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean this or that." Or the defensiveness is a very strong reaction. And if you're defending yourself against something that's not true, it kind of defeats the purpose of defending yourself if it's not true. If it's not true, just walk away. You don't need to defend yourself. If something's not, if you're not sensitive to a particular topic, then that means you're open about it, at least, or you're accepting of where you're at with it. And so these concepts are purely kind of like scientific methodology. Because you react to this situation, it doesn't mean that, for example, I'll take an example from my lifetime. Crap. Because I reacted to a situation of, for example, talking with an authority figure, and they say that I'm not doing enough in my life, and I take that to heart. However, which way I react is a symbol of that having some sort of value or truth in my life, whether or not it is true or not. It doesn't need to be true to have a catalytic influence over your life. It could very well just be believed to be true. If you believe and you trust people, but you also believe yourself, and you start to come to a disconnection between the two, you want to figure that out somehow. And that happens a multitude of different ways. It's called humanity. We try to recognize these things as debates, but then the definition between a debate and an argument are so intermingled nowadays that people are having debates and calling them arguments and calling them debates and not even really getting anywhere. And it's like, we really need to just bring it back down to the clarity of the symbolic representations of what we're actually meaning to communicate. Um, Otherwise, within the English language for sure. Education is, I feel, a big on the English language is a big gray zone where there's a lot of miscommunication. Um, Yet we are going so fast nowadays and still moving faster yet, and we think that we're going to understand anything anymore than when we're taking it slower and we're able to actually observe and have relationships in our life and not put so much pressure on everything. This really wasn't a directional video today. I didn't take any notes. I just wanted to talk about this, and I want to keep on experimenting and doing what I want to. What satisfies my curiosity, and being able to recognize my needs for expression and representation, and being able to polish the skills necessary in order for me to deliver messages properly in a I should most likely just make a channeling video or channel where I take myself out of it and I just channel and do some notes on a topic to keep me, you know, focused, but just channel because that's basically what I do. When I start channeling, I go and I go, and then it's just like if I don't let it go, and I try to keep that groundedness of like me being here, but also like letting the channel happen. Because if I just let the channel happen, a lot of the times I go into these cyclical patterns of communication of just, well, starting from here and trying to explain from the bottom up as I get broader and broader within my understanding or within the concepts I'm wishing to share that my understanding of. And I'll go through, like anywhere from like 15 minutes to 3 hours where right when I stop or right when I ground back into myself and I come back, I remember it like it's a dream. Oh yeah, I think I said something kind of kind of mysterious or whatever. Like I said something on this topic, and was more along the lines of trying to bring light into this concept or situation or conversation. I don't really remember what I said, and I usually never really remember what I say. It's just like, oh, snap back to reality. Hello, I hope my conversation with you was not too esoteric. I try to keep things grounded, but still figuring out the navigation systems within this everything, you know? But yeah, perspective. Keep it. Cultivate it. Have fun with it. Stop being so heavy with shit or set in stone with shit. And good luck. Cheers. Namaste. Don't.